Hi, this is Allie from the Power Poppy blog, and today we're going to do a whole bunch of different things using this gorgeous stamp set called Sunny Harvest. Today I'm going to be not only doing some embossing and some no-line coloring, we're also going to be using some chibi lights by Chibitronics. This is a particular starter kit, and inside comes your circuit sticker sketchbook, and it has all kinds of ideas and how to use your stickers and everything contained in the kit. You'll get a package of copper tape. You'll get a series of white LEDs and some colored LEDs, along with a couple of batteries and some clips. And in addition to that, I also have purchased some additional Chibitronics lights, and these ones happen to be pink, orange, and green, and today we're going to be using the orange. And it's all indicated by the P, the O, and the G standing for those colors. So let's get started. I have die cut 2 of our Bristol Smooth watercolor cardstock, and I've also cut an additional one out of vellum as well. We're going to be using the Mini Misty because it's just going to help position our stamp today. So I've set our first watercolor cardstock into the Misty, and we're going to use the Chinese lantern plant stamp, and I'm going to close the lid of my Mini Misty, and it's going to attach to the lid on this side. And today I'm going to actually begin with some really light distress ink, and this happens to be antique linen. I'm going to ink up our Chinese lantern stamp. I'm going to close it, give it a good press so it makes good contact with our watercolor paper. I'm going to ink it up one more time. That's the beauty of the Misty tool, is that as long as your paper doesn't move, the stamp can be stamped right over top in the exact same place. And I have my watercolor paper jammed into the top corner. There we go, a little bit darker, and it's not going to hinder my no-line watercoloring process. So for the time being, we're going to color this one up. So intertwined with our Chinese lantern is some bittersweet plant, and I've never actually seen a bittersweet in real life, but they have beautiful little kind of light orangey yellow coverings over these beautiful orangey red berries. So we're going to color our image that way. I'm not going to worry about actually coloring in the lantern aspect of the Chinese lantern plant, and I'll show you why in a moment. I'm going to speed this up, add some music. Here we go. Alright, now that we've got our basic coloring done, we are going to actually take this back to the Misty, and we're going to actually emboss over top. So we're going to add all those detailed lines back in and to be more distinct using our embossing powders. So let's do that. So I've placed our colored watercolor piece into my paper, course, I didn't watercolor, but I wanted the option because I wasn't sure what medium I was going to use. And the Bristol Smooth is amazing for coloring anything using any medium. Because I haven't moved my stamp, it will immediately go right over top of our image. But before we apply our embossing ink, our Versamark, I'm going to take my powder tool and just make sure that we have a little dusting of our powder. I'm going to bring in my Versamark. We're going to ink up our image really, really well. So my anti-static embossing pad there, this little purple thing, basically just eliminates the stray particles of the embossing powder that's going to go over top. So it just makes the process easier because you're not going to have all these oddball items stuck all over where you don't want them. So I have a piece of scrap paper. I'm just going to take my powder tool to that. I'm going to use some fine copper embossing powders to go over top of our entire image. And I'm just going to tap off, flick off the excess. Now I can use my finger to take off the stuff that's on the outside. But if you do have any stray little fellers like we do here, I'm just going to use a really fine brush, and I'm just going to brush them away because I don't want them to stick to my focal image. And because this paper is flexible, you can take it and funnel it back into our jar. Let's put the cap on, and I'm going to take our image now to my heat tool, and I'm going to heat it up, and I'll bring it back and show you what it looks like. So I've come back from my heat tool, and it now has a beautiful coppery effect to it. And our coloring is done. Now the reason why I did my coloring first, then my embossing, is because with Copic markers, you want to not put the tips of your markers to the embossing powder because you can actually ruin the tips of your markers. So that's why we did the no coloring first, and then we did the embossing. And look, you don't even see that antique linen ink because it's covered with embossing powder. All right, let's go back to our mini Misty because we're going to need it one more time. Again, I haven't moved my stamp. This is where I need our super cool vellum, and I'm going to put it in the same exact spot. I'm going to bring out my Versamark pad again, and I'm basically going to ink up the entire image just because it's easier. I don't actually need the entire image. I just need those lantern aspects. But having the extra is not going to hurt, and I'm really not going to use all that much embossing powder up in the process either. So I can't really see it because it is a clear ink. But we're going to, once again, pull out our scrap piece of paper here, apply our embossing powder, and the only ones I'm really worried about is just getting that lantern plant. A few tips when you're using vellum to emboss: you want to make sure your heat tool is really nice and hot and ready to go before you actually apply the heat to your vellum. Vellum will warp because of the heat. So the hotter it is, the faster it will blow that hot air across your image and emboss it that much quicker. So make sure you turn it on for 20 to 30 seconds, heat it up, and then apply the heat to your embossing powder. All right, and here's the beauty that we needed. And like I said, I only really needed to see these 4 items, so I'm not worried about the fact that I don't have any embossing powder or anything at the top of my image. I just need to see these 4 lanterns. All right, let's go on to the next part. I've pulled out my self-healing mat and my finger knife, craft knife, and what I want to do is I want to cut out all of my lanterns out of our top image, out of our cardstock. So I'm just going to go along the inside of the embossed line because I think my knife will go through the area a lot better than trying to cut through the embossing. And whatever details are in the center of our lanterns will show up, because what we're going to do is we're going to place this, our vellum piece, underneath. So all those partition veins and the stuff in those lanterns will actually show up again because they'll be tucked in behind the openings of this. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out all 4 of my lanterns, and we'll get along to the next step. All right, I have proceeded to cut out all 4 lanterns, and I just wanted to show you this is what we're going to do. We're going to put that vellum piece, and we're just going to sneak it in behind. And because it is done in the same exact die cut, it fits perfectly. You just line up that die cut, and there you go. It's in the perfect spot. But before I glue the vellum to the back of our image, we need to do a few more steps. So that's where our secondary shape comes in. And this is where I'm going to put that one over top the other. And I'm just going to kind of mark the center of those lanterns. I've got 4. There we go. We'll set that aside. And this is where we're going to play with our Chibitronics lights. I am going to be using the orange ones. So I've got my orange LEDs sitting to the left. We are going to use our copper tape, which comes in the starter kit. You can also buy it separately. And because you don't need a lot of copper tape, you can actually cut this in half. So I'm going to do that. It actually makes the tape last twice as long because I'm getting 2 pieces out of 1 strip. Okay, so I'm not going to cut it off quite yet. Now, in order to make it work, we need a battery. And batteries are fairly large. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to hide it underneath this corner of our image. I'm going to find a smaller sentiment to put it there so that I can leave a note for the recipient to please press the sentiment on the front of the card. So we know our battery is going to sit here. So I'm just going to make a generic circle. Okay. Now, these batteries are labeled positive and negative. The positive is one side and the negative is the opposite. Okay. And the chibi lights are designed with a positive side and a negative side. So each one of these each triangle is a light. And the way you remember, the negative is the small or the point, and the positive is the larger strip. And it's even labeled on either side of that LED, just so you know. So in order to make this work, we have to create a circuit. Knowing that our battery is going to sit there and our lights are going to sit here, we need to make a track to put our lights on. So we're going to make this, say, the negative side So it's actually got to come over and it's got to go under the battery. So it's going to go under. The negative is the under. Then we have to make a positive trail. And it has to be fairly close to the negative. And we've actually got to run it up and over to touch the top. So I'm just going to leave that. It's our positive. This is our negative. So we've got to attach our GB lights according to the positive and negative that we have set out. So let's do that right now. I'm going to pop these out. And this is awesome because there's a really, like a sticker, not really a sticker, but a kind of a cling wrap. And since our lanterns are generally orange, I'm going to use the orange chibi lights. You could do them in green or yellow, or heck, you could even do them in purple. But for me, I'd like to do them in orange. So you're going to take those stickers. Oh, you know what? Before we do that, I'm going to just set him over there. We need to go back to our copper foil. Sorry. I think I need a little bit longer, so I'm just going to trim this just a little bit longer here. And now I've got two pieces. And we've got to put our copper trails down before we put our stickers on. So when you get to a spot where you have to bend, you're basically going to bend the tape back on itself. And stick it to itself again. So you bend it back a little bit and you go around the corner. You don't need a lot of bend in it, but enough to get yourself to your destination. And there we go. Now, you're going to want to grab your bone folder and you're just going to make sure that everything is smoothed out and adhered to your background. Okay? All right. Now you're going to need a strip of paper to make the plus side go up and over. So I'm just going to use a piece of scrap, fairly thin cardstock, and I'm going to go and trim a piece here. So I went and trimmed a piece and I made a little fold in it on one side, and I've got some score pal tape on it, and I want to make something that kind of goes over top of our battery here. And because we need to take our next strip down the side of all of our light spots, which again are our little X's, and we need to take it up and around and over top to the top of this battery. So we'll probably need a little bit more tape, but let's see where this piece gets us. I think what we'll do is we'll start on the little battery thing here first. Let's attach it first. Of course, it's not going to come off my tape. Ha ha ha. Okay, so I'm going to put it, I think I'm going to put it this way because I think it'll be easier for me to, there. Okay. So it's attached to the back of that, and it's going to make a nice little sort of overlay. Now, because we want the copper tape to touch the battery, I'm going to start on the inside of that piece. Just get the backing to cooperate. So this way, that copper tape is going to make a connection with the top of our battery without touching the other side. Now I'm going to be very careful with this connection point here because it has to kind of go over a gap. And we will bend our tape very, very carefully around the corner. I'm going to use my bone folder here to kind of help me out. Smooth down that little fella around the bend. We're going to have to bend it one more time. It's sticking to my fingers. Okay. So, around the corner. Maybe. Stuff is pretty forgiving, but you still have to get it to stick. Okay. Alright. I have to bend it again. Bend it back on itself. There we go. I am going to need another piece, but that's okay. So I'm just going to use my bone folder and let's get the piece that we have on here stuck down. Alright. So I'm going to cut another piece. We don't need too much longer of a piece here. I'd imagine about there will do us. And we're going to complete adding our copper tape to the remainder of our line in order to make sure that those lights are then part of the circuit. Oops. Just wanting it to cooperate. Alright. So a little burnishing. Make sure everything's nice and flat, making good contact with the other overlapped pieces. I mean, especially at the joint, that you want to make sure the joint is making nice connection. Okay, so let's now we can put on our LED. So remembering that the positive side is this line, so you've got to put positive side of the LED crossing, and let's give her a test. Oh, voila! We have orange light. So let's add the remainder of our orange lights, and we'll go on with finishing off our card. So always make sure that you do a little bit of a test run. Look at that, we have some orange glowing lights. That's awesome. Make sure they're nice and stuck down too. I actually had to adjust this one a little bit so that it was a little bit more firm, because initially when I put it on it wasn't working, but that's okay, we got her to work. Now we need to build up and make sure that this is all put together. We're going to put a sediment on this before I go and assemble everything, because it's really hard to stamp on something that's kind of pushed up. So I'm going to do that first, and then we will start our assembly, and I'll show you how we make sure that everything works and that this doesn't stay on all the time. We are going to do a kind of a simulated test run here. Look at that, a beautiful orange glow. So we need to make sure that this piece is not always stuck down on top. I mean, it is going to go over top. So we have to build the kind of the backer piece up a little bit to be able to handle our battery, because it's quite thick. So I'm going to start off by building kind of a wall around it. Now I have to make sure that it's able to stick in there okay. Might have to make a thinner part, so I'm just going to build that up there. Now, so my paper doesn't actually get stuck down, I'm going to leave my blue backer on it. And you can actually, because this is not conductive, I can actually go over top. It doesn't complete the circuit because there's no metal in it to complete the circuit. So it then contains my battery. So my battery's not going to move anywhere. And we'll start off going around. Oops. Normally I try and keep this all one piece because it makes it easier to take the backer off. So I just make slices in it to get it around the corners. This product here is no longer available from the company I purchased it from, sadly enough. Now, there's quite a bit of room that's around here, so I don't want to put too much foam tape in this area, but I will put a little bit just to make sure that that gap is taken care of, because you want a little bit of 3D-ness to this here. Okay. So like I said, I'm going to leave all the blue tape on this. Just going to do a trial test before I go and finish this up. Yeah, and it's still a little bit thick, or not thick enough. So I'm going to go and double up our foam tape. So I'm going to go all the way around. I'm even going to do this piece. I'm going to take off the blue, but I'm going to leave the blue on top of the second layer. So I'll be right back. I'll finish this up, and then we'll do the stamping of the sentiment, and we'll get this card put together. So I've doubled up all the tape. Everything still works. Let's go put a sentiment on this little fella. And there we go. Sunny sentiment for our LED card. All right. So now the fun part. I am going to leave, like I said, I'm not going to stick this down. That way, I think it'll just hold it up that much better, and it won't trap this close to that connection and complete the circuit. So hopefully, I have made cards where I've inserted a piece of paper for mailing purposes. Like I took a piece of just copy paper, and let's just do a mock one here. I've made a piece of paper, something like this, and because I didn't take the backer off the tape, I just kind of left it hanging out from underneath the card, and then I told the person when they received it to pull the little tab and pull the piece of paper out. That way, guaranteed, there will be no connection made in the mail, and there will be no battery use. So if you're intending on sending it through the mail, that's a good little trick. It's just to put something that decreases the risk of it being squished and the contact being made for that battery. And of course your recipient, you can just tell them on the inside, just leave them a little note or write a little sticky note and attach it on the inside. And we will line everything up here very carefully, because once it's stuck, it's stuck. Match it up. There we go. Just press it. Make sure you got good contact. You know what I think I will do, and I can probably do this. I think I will take off a tiny little bit of the backer paper just on the bottom of this one piece. I need some tweezers just to make it, oh, well, I guess it's all coming off. Just the side here. There we go. And because there's no glue, you could stick this back in, but of course it's not going to. It's stuck. There. There we go. Okay, so you're just going to tell your recipient to push the sentiment on the front. And let's see what this looks like in the dark. So I'm just going to turn off my lights here. How cool is that? So thanks for joining me today. I hope this inspires you to create. And for all the products and everything, you can proceed to the Power Poppy blog and I'll have everything listed for you there. And I'll also show you my completed card because we're going to make this the focal point. Alrighty guys, thanks for another Inspire Me Monday. I'm Allison Cope and thanks for joining me.